Hawaii sells the safest fantasy in America. No bears, no wolves, no snakes at all. An island paradise with nothing on land that wants to hurt you. That part is even true. But paradise has a second half nobody puts on the postcard, and it starts exactly where the sand meets the water. The ocean here doesn't care that you came to relax. It has its own residents, older than the islands themselves, and the same warm, clear water that makes Hawaii look like the safest place on earth is what keeps them so close to shore, so easy to swim right past without ever knowing it. Locals who grew up on these islands will tell you the truth. Tourists never hear on arrival. Hawaii really is one of the safest places in the country to walk through a forest. It's one of the most dangerous places in the country to walk into the water without knowing what's already living in it. There's a reason for that contrast, and it isn't random. Hawaii's isolation kept most of the land predators that colonized the mainland from ever reaching these islands in the first place. No native snakes evolved here. No large land mammals ever established themselves the way they did across the continent. The ocean tells a completely different story because the water surrounding these islands has never been isolated from anything. It connects directly to some of the richest, most predator-dense marine ecosystems on the planet. Here are 9 animals sharing Hawaii's coastline with you, starting with the ones that arrive on a schedule locals know by heart and tourists never think to ask about. Box jellyfish swarm into Hawaii's nearshore waters with a predictability that would surprise most visitors, arriving in the days following a full moon as they move inshore to spawn. Locals track this cycle closely enough that lifeguards post warning flags specifically tied to the lunar calendar because a box jellyfish is near invisible. Trailing tentacles deliver a stain capable of causing intense pain, welting, and in more serious cases, a systemic reaction that requires medical attention. Tourists renting snorkel gear on exactly the wrong week have no way of knowing the swarm arrived days ago unless someone tells them, which is precisely why so many stings happen to people visiting for the very first time. Longtime residents check the lunar calendar the same way people elsewhere check a rain forecast before planning a beach day. And beach shops in the know will quietly steer first-time visitors toward a different stretch of coastline during peak swarm days without ever explaining exactly why. Some of the most popular snorkeling beaches on the island see a genuine, measurable dip in sting reports outside the swarm window, which locals treat as simple common knowledge. And most tourists never think to ask a single question about before booking their trip. Cone snails look like nothing more than a pretty shell, the kind of find that seems perfect for a tide pool souvenir. And that assumption has hurt more people than almost any other animal on this list. These slow-moving predators hunt using a harpoon-like tooth that fires a fast-acting neurotoxic venom, originally evolved to instantly paralyze fish. And a sting from certain species can cause serious pain, numbness, and in rare cases is proven fatal to people. The danger here isn't a fast, aggressive predator. It's an animal that looks completely harmless right up until a curious hand picks it up to get a closer look. Shell collecting is one of the most common tide pool activities on the islands, and it's exactly that instinct. Pick it up, turn it over, admire the pattern that turns an animal built to ambush fish into one of Hawaii's most quietly dangerous souvenirs. The stonefish and its reef-dwelling relatives have turned camouflage into one of the most effective defenses in the ocean, resting motionless on the seafloor or wedged into a rocky crevice, textured and colored so closely to the surrounding coral and rock that even experienced divers can miss one from a few feet away. A stonefish carries venomous spines along its back, capable of delivering one of the most painful stings of any marine animal, activated purely by a defensive reflex when something presses down on it. The classic Hawaii encounter isn't a diver spotting the fish and reacting. It's a waiting tourist putting a bare foot down on what looked, right up until that moment, like an unremarkable piece of reef. Reef shoes solve this problem almost entirely, which is exactly why lifeguards and dive shops across the islands push them so consistently, not as a suggestion for comfort, but as the single simplest way to remove this entire category of risk from a day at the beach. Those three explain why so much of Hawaii's real danger comes from animals that never chase anyone at all. Jellyfish drifting with the current, a shell sitting still on the sand, a fish doing nothing but blending in. What comes next moves with the water itself, riding currents and washing ashore in ways that catch even careful swimmers off guard. And unlike the first three entries, these next ones don't wait to be stepped on or picked up. They arrive on their own terms, carried by wind and tide, straight toward the same beaches everyone assumes are simply calm. The Portuguese man-of-war isn't a single jellyfish, but a colony of specialized organisms working together, drifting wherever wind and current carry it. And Hawaii's trade winds regularly push these colonies right up onto popular beaches. Its long, trailing tentacles deliver a painful sting on contact, and detached tentacle fragments washed up on sand remain capable of stinging long after the main colony has drifted elsewhere, which means the danger doesn't end when the visible animal is gone. Lifeguards across the islands post man-o'-war warning flags during onshore wind conditions for exactly this reason, because the same weather that makes for a beautiful beach day is often the weather that's pushing these colonies straight toward the shoreline. What makes this animal particularly deceptive is how little warning it gives before contact. The visible float above the waterline can look almost decorative, a small blue bubble bobbing along the surface, while the actual danger trails invisibly beneath it for a distance most swimmers never think to account for. Hawaii's tide pools and shallow reef crevices are home to Moray eels, powerful, sharp-toothed predators that spend most of the day tucked into rocky holes with only their head visible. Most eel encounters happen because a tourist, following well-meaning but bad advice, reaches directly into a crevice looking for shells or curious wildlife, not realizing an eel is already occupying the space and will defend it with a fast, powerful bite capable of serious lacerations. Eels aren't hunting people, and a diver who simply observes from a respectful distance almost never has a problem. But the classic Hawaii tide pool injury is a hand that went somewhere it shouldn't have without looking first. Local dive guides have a simple rule. They repeat to every group before entering the water. If you can't see all the way into a hole or crevice, don't put your hand in it, because the animal that's already living there has no way of knowing your intentions are curiosity rather than a threat. Sea urchins and Hawaii's sharp volcanic reef itself round out the coastline's quieter injury risk, less dramatic than a sting or a bite, but responsible for a steady stream of visitor injuries every single year. Urchin spines break off under the skin and are notoriously difficult to fully remove, often working deeper before the body eventually absorbs them. And coral cuts, even minor ones, carry a real infection risk in Hawaii's warm ocean water if they aren't cleaned and treated properly. Locals who grew up swimming these reefs know the water shoes and the careful footing that visitors in bare feet skip entirely. And it's often that one small overlooked habit that turns a great beach day into an urgent care visit. Hawaii's warm ocean water carries a mix of marine bacteria that thrives in even a minor break in the skin, which is why a scrape that would heal on its own almost anywhere else on the mainland can turn into a genuine infection here if it isn't rinsed with fresh water and properly treated within the first day. Those three cover the reef's quieter hazards, the ones that rarely make headlines but fill island clinics all summer long. What's left are the animals large enough and present enough that Hawaii's waters have built an entire culture of caution around them. Animals that don't rely on camouflage or drift because their size alone means they don't need to hide the way everything before them did. Hawaii's coastal waters carry real shark presence, and while the odds of any single encounter remain genuinely low, certain conditions change that math meaningfully. Murky water near river mouths. After heavy rainfall, dawn and dusk swimming sessions, and areas near seal or fish activity all raise encounter risk, and lifeguards across the islands post advisories tied to exactly these conditions during and after storms. Hawaii sees more shark advisories issued after major rain events than after almost any other single trigger, a pattern that's become so consistent over the years that longtime beachgoers check the forecast for exactly this reason without ever needing a lifeguard to remind them. Locals treat river mouth water after rain the way people elsewhere treat a lightning warning. Not a guarantee of danger, but a clear signal that the odds have shifted enough to matter. Runoff carries sediment and debris that clouds visibility dramatically, and it also washes organic material into the near shore zone that draws in the fish sharks feed on, which means the exact conditions that make the water look uninviting are often the same conditions locals take most seriously, even when the beach itself still looks perfectly calm. The Hawaiian monk seal is one of the most endangered marine mammals on Earth, protected by strict federal law, and also, surprisingly to most visitors, capable of aggressive behavior that has resulted in real bite injuries. These seals haul out directly onto popular beaches to rest, and a monk seal that feels crowded or threatened, especially a mother with a pup, can move and bite with far more speed and force than its docile sunbathing appearance suggests. Their population numbers in the low thousands across the entire island chain, small enough that wildlife officials track individual seals by name, which makes every single interaction, good or bad, something the local conservation community pays close attention to, because approaching a monk seal too closely is also a serious federal offense given their protected status. Hawaii's beach culture has built an unusual dual warning around this animal: stay back for the seal's safety and stay back for your own. Volunteers with island conservation groups regularly rope off stretches of beach the moment a seal hauls out to rest, not as an inconvenience to sunbathers, but because these animals are recovering from decades of population decline. And every incident in either direction sets back a recovery effort that's taken generations to build. That's 8 ways Hawaii's water can turn dangerous: stings, bites, venom, and a protected predator nobody expects to need distance from. And if you had to guess which single animal defines Hawaii's real ocean risk more than any other, your mind has probably already landed on the right one, the same animal that's been circling the edge of this entire list since the opening line about a paradise with a second half nobody warns you about. The tiger shark is Hawaii's true apex predator, and the islands see one of the highest rates of tiger shark encounters anywhere in the United States. Unlike some shark species that show a strong preference for specific prey, tiger sharks are notably indiscriminate feeders, which is part of why they're involved in a disproportionate share of Hawaii's shark encounters compared to other species in the same waters. They favor the same channels between islands and the same murky nearshore zones that swimmers, surfers, and paddleboarders use constantly. And Hawaii's marine safety officials track seasonal patterns in tiger shark activity closely enough to issue targeted advisories during the months when encounters historically climb. What sets the tiger shark apart from every other entry on this list isn't aggression in the way people usually picture it. It's curiosity paired with an opportunistic feeding style that doesn't discriminate the way a more specialized predator would. Researchers who study tagged tiger sharks around the islands have tracked individuals moving between channels with a consistency that mirrors a commute, following the same general paths across weeks and months, which means the water off a popular surf break isn't simply open ocean, where anything might happen to pass through. Is part of an established route this particular animal has been using for a very long time. The ocean that looks so calm and blue from the shoreline is, at certain depths and certain times of year, genuinely tiger shark water. And locals who surf here regularly build that knowledge into every session without treating it as an afterthought. Seasoned surfers watch for murky conditions, avoid dawn and dusk sessions near known channel areas, and treat any unusual behavior from fish or seabirds nearby as worth paying attention to. Small, practiced habits that come from growing up alongside an animal. Most visitors only think about for the length of a single movie reference. And that's the real shape of the thesis this whole list has been building toward. Hawaii's postcard isn't lying exactly. The land really is close to the safest terrain in the country. No venomous snakes, no bears, nothing stalking the trailside brush. But paradise has always had a second half, and it starts precisely where the sand gives way to water, where the warm, clear conditions that make these islands look so inviting are the exact same conditions that keep the ocean's residents close to shore. Nobody puts that on the postcard. The tourism brochures show the water the way the sky shows it, flat, turquoise, endlessly inviting, and every single word of that description is technically true right up until it isn't. The locals just grow up knowing it, absorbing the lunar calendar and the wind direction and the river mouth warnings the same way kids anywhere else absorb which streets are safe to cross without looking both ways. It isn't fear exactly, it's fluency. a working knowledge of an ocean that's been exactly the same for longer than any hotel on the coastline. And the ocean never once needed anyone's permission to be exactly what it's always been. If you found this fascinating, hit subscribe for more stories